For 16 years, DJ Bob has been your go-to source for everything pop culture, past, present, and what's coming next.
We live and breathe pop culture just like you, connecting with everyone from well-known names to everyday heroes.
And some people you might not have heard of.
DJ Bob doesn't just interview people. He dives into their stories, their passions, and challenges, building a community of inspiring, creative, and driven individuals along the way.
Join DJ Bob as he explores the entertainment world and the conversations that really matter.
This is the DJ Bob Show. Roll it.
Look, it's very rare that I have a guest that I stay in touch with so frequently that the lines blur from when I've had them on the podcast versus when I've actually spoken to them. You all haven't heard this guest since 2023, but I talk to this person more often than I ever thought I would, and it is the wonderful Jocelyn Stevenson, children's television dynamo and now author of the Waterubas, Book 1 and 2. We're here talking about Book 2, which is available on March 19th. But we also talk about inclusivity within the book and our friendship as well. It's a nice deep dive between two friends, and it just happens to be recorded. I can't say anything but great things about Jocelyn and how much I love and respect her. So let's get into this conversation and make sure you check out the Waterubas Book 2, available on Amazon. Enjoy this one. Well, hello.
Hello.
I literally just finished reading the book like 20 minutes ago.
You're kidding. You read that whole thing, all 336 pages?
Yes.
Oh my God, Bob. Did you like it?
I loved it.
Did you? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, great. You didn't find it confusing? No, people have liked it, but I wanted to hear from you.
I mean, the fact that you set it up in the beginning, like, if people haven't read it in a while,
Yeah.
it was like, that's such a TV thing to do.
And it was all Miriam's voice too.
Yeah.
That was one of the people who read it. Because my beloved readers like yourself and Hammer. It was Laura Phillips, actually. And I don't know whether you know who she is. She was a writer on Fraggle Rock, good friend of Larry's too.
Oh, that's awesome.
But she when she read it, and I'd written that first whole thing in just the narrator's voice. And she said, no, that should be Miriam telling people. And I thought, genius.
Jocelyn, I can't believe it's been almost like 3 years since you've been on our show.
That's not true. Is that really true, Bob?
That first meeting kind of prompted this
lifelong friendship. That's what you're trying to say? That first meeting?
Well, but I remember there was this light bulb moment that has to do with this book that we're talking about.
Really, really important. Yeah.
So, Jocelyn, before we get into it, if people don't know who you are, could you kind of give us a brief elevator pitch of who you are and what you've done and why you're here?
Okay. Why I'm here on the planet, or why you and I are here talking? Could be related, actually. I started my career I had been working in kids television I started my career way back in the 70s at the Children's Television Workshop, which it was Sesame Workshop was called at that time. And I started work because I had a sort of epiphany that if I wanted to change the world, and this is, me in my 20s, but if I wanted to change the world, start with kids. And when I saw Sesame Street, which had just started in those days, I thought, get me to New York. I need to work on this. This is really interesting. And so that started it all. So I worked on the Sesame Street magazine, and I ended up writing some of the show. I met Jim Henson. I was chosen or put on the original team to create a an international series for children that would help stop war, which ended up being Fraggle Rock. And yeah, so I've been working in kids TV ever since then. Magic School Bus, all sorts of things. I live in the UK. Things I've done here, and worked with a company called Hit Entertainment. So I worked on Bob the Builder and Thomas the Tank Engine and Barney and Friends and Angelina Ballerina, on and on. Anything. I've worked on a lot of kids programming, and then when I worked on this big project it was actually an online community for kids called Moshi Monsters. And when I worked on that, after I worked on that, we did a thing called Moshi Monsters the movie. When I finished that, I decided, okay, I'm in the third act of my career now. I want to do a big, important idea like the idea Jim gave us, which is I want you to do a cruise series that will help stop war. And the big idea that I came up with, or I was attracted to, was water. So then that was really 10 years ago, more, that I started working on what was going to be turned into my third act Heart project, which is turned into a project called, well, people would call it intellectual property. A project called the Waterubas. And because I was developing it, and I originally developed it for TV because that's all I know. That's what I know the best. TV. That was all during the pandemic, and I decided I couldn't face a Zoom screen filled with broadcast executives to try to pitch this third act Heart project to them. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to write it down. I'm going to make it books to get it all down the way I want to. And so that's what I did. So did I know how to write a novel for a 9 to 12-year-old? I didn't have a clue. So I set off on this journey to discover how to write a novel for 9 to 12-year-olds, to get down all my ideas for the Waterubas. And I guess you're going to ask me at some point to explain what the Waterubas are. But anyway, so that's what. And so the first book, the whole story takes place in 2 books. The first book was published in the end of 2024, and then the second book, which finishes the story, that's going to be published in March of this year. Very exciting.
And the elevator didn't get stuck.
I kept thinking it was going up and down myself, but that's okay.
So
here we are.
So we're here. So let's talk about the Waterubas and how the reader can, kind of meet them and kind of claim ownership of them, because they are their own kind of characters in their own kind of world. So kind of explain that ecosystem a little bit.
Okay, so it all came from the idea that the more I knew about water, the more I found out about water. And I did, because I'd worked on the Magic School Bus, the idea that I wanted to know the science so that I wouldn't misinform kids. But I decided, I asked myself the question, how do you make kids love water? How can we make kids love water? Because my idea is that when they're grown-ups, when people who are 9 to 12 years old right now, when they're grown-ups, they're going to have a lot to deal with. The water is a big challenge. It's getting more challenging. And wouldn't it be interesting if they faced that challenge with love and respect rather than with fear and greed? So that was my kind of motivating principle under the whole thing. So then it was like, how do you make kids love water? And I can't, and I don't know, I never like to say I created. I discovered these characters called the Waterubas. Now, the thing about the Waterubas, the Waterubas came to the planet 4 billion years ago on the same asteroid. And there's 81 of them. And as I was developing, I realized I wanted to get to know them, like you say, through a kid. So the kid gets to know them. So my main character is a human girl called Miriam, 11-year-old girl, who discovers she can turn into water. Now, the other thing I need to say about the Waterubas is they aren't creatures who live in water. And this is subtle, but very important to me. They're not creatures who live in water. They are water. So you could be looking at a glass of clear water and suddenly Craigie or one of the Waterubas would appear out of it. And for a minute they look like they're just shadows of ripples or whatever, and then suddenly you see this character, and they first thing they do is wave at you. They like to wave, Waterubas. So it's very important that they were water, which means all the characteristics of water. Water, unlike human beings, water never wants anything to be different than it is. So water doesn't care if it's polluted. Water doesn't care if it's evaporating. Water doesn't care if it's freezing. So this whole idea of water, there's, and water's everywhere. It connects everything. So Miriam, my human girl, whom I love, she discovers she can turn for all sorts of reasons. She can turn into water. Because I also just wanted a human to try to be able to experience what would it be like to be water? So it's sort of one of my log lines is, and I think Bob, is it's Earth from water's point of view.
That was one of the first things you said to me when you.
That's really important, knowing what I learned from the Magic School Bus is it's you want the kids to experience the science, as it were.
You wanted to feel like for them that it is theirs, but in this elementary way of thinking, like you want them to feel like they're a part of something, and I feel like in the world of the Waterubas, that is 100% true.
The most satisfying thing for kids that I hear from kids who've read book one is they ask me one question. They were asking me one question. When's book two? That indicates to me that they wanted to know more and they were into the story. And also just, making their relationship with Miriam's relationship with the Waterubas, and hence the reader's relationship with the Waterubas. They're goofy. They're funny. Don't you think?
Yeah, they are.
And so, this isn't serious. This is joyful. They're joy buckets. They love everything. In fact, my human characters don't understand this. Like, how can Miriam will say sometimes, she'll say, yes, but if that happens, it would be bad. And the Waterubas say to her, what's bad? It's just,
they're kind of naive.
Yeah. Well, they also everything just is. They don't judge. This is bad. This is good. It's not, they don't decide, oh, freezing would be bad. No, I mean, freezing is just freezing. Evaporating, that's just evaporating. It's that. And that was really interesting writing that. And also, I just feel like it's something really important to get across to kids too. I mean, water gives us quite, particularly the idea that it connects everything, gives us quite big ideas,
One of the things I really wanted to highlight today, because it's important to me and it means a world to me, is the character of Jeff.
Yeah, I love Jeff. Well, Jeff is thanks to you. I mean, Jeff was mentioned, and I knew that Miriam had a brother called Jeff, and she has 3 brothers, and she's 11, Albert's 13, her older brother. She then comes her. Then Jeff is 9, and Eric, the youngest, is 6. And you, in our first discussion, you challenged me on diversity, or you asked me the question about how do I deal with diversity in the writing I've done for kids. And I just had this epiphany as I was talking to you. Wait a minute. Jeff has cerebral palsy. Duh. Jeff. And there was nothing I'd written, and I'd already written book 1. There was nothing I'd written in book 1 that would undermine this idea, because we don't really meet him until book 2. And you opened up that whole possibility because you volunteered to help me, to tell me what it's like and what it feels like. And you sent absolutely beautiful videos of when you were a little boy, and you were learning. If you trying to walk, and then you could answer the question to when I said when did you get your first wheelchair, all those things.
One of the questions you asked me was so surface level, but it made so much sense, and it's like, how does it feel to constantly have to get a new wheelchair all the time. Just have to just relearn something. And it's not something that I always think about because I live it. But knowing that I could be a help to you and knowing that I could support this in a way that it could be, it could enhance this story. It was so meaningful to me.
Well, it made all the difference to me because then I didn't feel like I was being some kind of phony writing this. This felt authentic because you're authentic, and you could you could tell me, and I knew also you'd be reading what I wrote. So if I got it wrong, you'd correct me. And what was really interesting to me, and one of the things you said to me, because I was talking about it, what's this idea? What would it feel like to Jeff to turn into water? And something I would never have known when you said, he would notice that his legs aren't tight anymore.
The spasticity of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was able to put that in. So it just makes it just was real.
Because I explained to you the idea of spasticity and how in certain situations when it's freezing temperatures or any shock to the system, it affects everything. Like, I'm gonna be honest here, we are friends and we have conversations where things are sometimes difficult, and I've told you things like, I'm very spastic today, or my body does not like, being overstimulated. I don't think that you understood that mind and body connection in that way before, but I'm glad that I could enlighten you and hopefully many others.
Did you feel I represented it properly then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good. Because I know you would have told me if you felt I hadn't. But it was that extra thing which you told me, after I'd done a draft, so I could put it into the next draft, that extra thing about just how your legs feel, that spasticity, as you say, which, I didn't have to make a big deal out of it, but I could mention it.
Yeah, because it is a part of it.
Yeah.
It's not.
And also his body was just changing, and there was this contrast he was getting too, because he was turning into water where none of that was there. It was like that moment when his father's looking at him for the first time as he's in a puddle of water on the floor, and his father's just watching his son swim around and move around in a way that he never had been able to, since because of his condition. And as a parent, I just that little bit actually really got me thinking about Gary, his father, watching him swimming around free as a bird there. And then the whole but his wheelchair was always there. His wheelchair puddled and turned into water when he did. So it was but he never needed it until he came back out again.
And the moment that I saw parallels, you talk about his father seeing him for the first time. It's like the footage of me at graduation.
Yes.
I'm not trying to make this podcast self-indulgent, but that moment really just connected with me. That's what that is. That's exactly what that is. That immense pride when you don't think that they could do it, and then they
you
just
did it.
do it.
Yep.
It's just great.
So it was, that character is thanks to you. And he's a great little kid, and he's very brave. And nobody, and this is what with Maria, who was my sensitivity,
and a dear friend of mine now too. I appreciate her.
Maria Garrido Manzano, right?
Yep.
I mean, and it was so encouraging to hear from her when she read it. And she just said she loved how he just fit in with the family. There was nobody made a big deal out of it. He is just what he is. And, and she particularly liked the moment when it was Albert's idea that he puddle into the pitcher so he could be carried upstairs as water rather than having to get into the stair lift and all that. That was the other thing. You could tell me what that would be like, this whole stair lift and everything.
I think that was a lot to do with our friend Matt Hammer, because you sat us down and you said, look, I have to talk to you guys.
Yes.
And you sat with us for like an hour and you wrote things down and made sure that it was authentic.
Yeah, no, things like I remember too asking the two of you, can you, does the back of your wheelchair go back so that, you can lie back at like a car seat or something? And you were like, oh yeah. It's that made that whole
Yeah,
scene
it
work.
reclines. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that made that whole scene because he's just going to stay there in the kitchen. The scene is that everybody's tired and they're going to go upstairs to bed, but he's like, no, I'm too tired to try to deal with the stair lift and all that. I'm just going to lie here. And he reclines his chair. I asked you guys if that was possible. And then, his grandmother and his family are like, no, 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 you need to be, in your bed. Well, don't bother me. I'm just going to stay here. I'm comfortable. Don't worry. And then his brother says, well, wait a minute. And his brother has this idea. What if you puddle and we put you in a pitcher of water and I'll carry you up the stairs? And of course, he loves that idea. And it turned into a really nice scene. Thank you, Bob. But then, of
Well,
course, his brother dumps him in the bathtub, and he goes down the drain. But never mind, that goes into another part of the
that part I didn't contribute to.
story.
The first time we spoke, the first book wasn't out yet. You were just explaining it to us.
Right.
So now that both books are done, how do you feel?
I feel well. I have to say, I feel a little bit sad. I sort of miss these characters and all that, but I also am now really. This is 2026 is the year of the Waterubas for me, and and I have a very nice PR company and we're working on getting me into schools so I can talk to kids in schools, doing kids book festival. In other words, getting the book out there, and so I'm looking for, I'm really, really looking forward to talking to kids who've read it. I mean, I have talked to a few kids who read book one, as I said, because I only have one question for you. When's book two would be the thing. But for kids who've read the whole story and to, and to talk to them and get their, I just love talking to kids I think it's going to be really fun. So I'm looking forward to that. But I'm sort of sad that, that I'm not sitting down and writing every day with these characters because I really like them all.
And I'm sad you won't ask me random questions about.
I might cook up some of it. You never know what might happen, Bob.
One of the questions that I've been asking authors a lot lately, because I've had a lot of children lit authors on Actively, is what is it like for you to get your first box of author copies of the book, especially for you, since you didn't imagine it to be a book at first? What was that moment for you?
Oh my God. It was it's so exciting because my publisher is in America, and he's a friend, and I know him and love him and trust him, but it's very small independent publishing company, and they publish via Amazon. So there's no infrastructure. And so, I mean, I didn't know that there's any such thing as an interior book designer. Who knew? Because normally if you're with a mainstream publishing company, that gets taken care of in-house. But I found this wonderful woman who used to work for mainstream publishing companies, Lorraine Inglis, who designed because it was a lot of drawings from Brian Froud and different things that had to be who designed the book. And she's the one whose idea it was to make each chapter title is like a wave of water.
I love that.
Yeah, and she puts little splats on the bottom of the page numbers for the beginning of every chapter, and book two, because you've seen book two, you've seen her design on book two too, because it's even it's just gorgeous. And so you see this thing and it's all held together, and the design was so it was so exciting. And you're holding this thing in your hands. It's different, when doing TV, and you sit down and you watch something you've done, you can't hold it.
And it doesn't, I mean, storylines stick with you, but this is something that's yours. It's tangible. You're gonna have it.
Yeah, and then also just Brian Froud's absolutely amazing artwork all the way through. And then the drawings that Brad's done, except they, Brad's drawings that were done by Natasha de Pontby. And it all just, I found it really, really exciting.
I can't even imagine it.
And appreciated the excitement. I feel sorry for these guys, like, I know David Williams or people like even J.K. Rowling, who had, millions of books come out, and that they won't have that excitement of seeing it for the first time. They get used to it. So, because the second book was even, it was because it's 100 pages longer.
Yeah, it is.
Whoa, look at this thing. Yeah.
When I told you I read it, all of it, you're like, really?
Yeah, I was amazed. Well done. Thank you.
I wanted to tell you honestly that I loved it because it was so immersive, and it was so interesting to know that I got to know how your mind works through these characters, because for a moment your brain is split, like you're in these characters for however long. So, like, was it hard for you to find time to step away from these guys?
It was, yeah, it was. I knew when I had to step away from them, I didn't have to find the time to do it. I sort of, realized I had to step away from them because I was finished. But what was hard was I really missed them. I really like every single character. And yeah, I miss them. And I liked their interactions, and I liked the story. I liked it because this is going to sound, well, I don't know. I think for maybe people who write books might agree with this. It doesn't feel like you own them or you've created them. I mean, there were times when I was writing these books that I didn't know what was going to happen, or I thought that I was writing along and I thought I knew what was going to happen next. And then it didn't. For instance,
just that story alone, you didn't know. You met me, and then
yeah, that's true. I didn't know Jeff had CP until I met you. But then I knew it. It was like it was so obvious. But there's a moment in book 2. This really amused me. I'm writing along, and it's when Miriam's going to go off to do this big, very scary thing where she's going to go through the new tech, right? So she has this big scary job that she has to do all by herself, and she's lining up, and her family's all behind her, and everybody's just, a lot depends on her at this point in the book. And so her family's all there, and her best friend Brad, though, and they're all giving her a hug and telling her, you're going to be great, blah blah. And Brad's not there, and where's Brad? Now, I swear to you, I didn't. So what happened was Brad comes running down the stairs, and he says, "I'm going with you." I swear to you, I had no idea he was going to do that. And it was actually to the point where I was screaming at him. I mean, I'm screaming at my own character, just saying, "Brad, you can't do, now I've got to go back and rewrite this other stuff to make it work that you're
making it hard."
It was such an interesting experience. So yeah, so they just feel, I haven't written them, and it's different when you're writing TV, because the characters that you know and love are brought to life by other people, their voice, particularly if you're working with puppeteers. And so, I know Red Fraggle, but I don't know her because she's been in my head and everything, but I know her because I know the puppeteer and I know the puppet, and it's different. And it's really interesting. I'm looking forward to talking to other book writers about what that's like with this relationship you get with your characters. I find that really interesting and wonderful.
It's almost like you're with them for so long, and then you go on vacation and you don't know if you're going to come back.
I miss them. Yes.
So
that's a good
the question that I keep thinking about is, like, what do you hope, like readers take away from this book? Because there is so much, it's so multi-layered. But if there's one kind of blanket theme or idea, what do you hope people take away from this?
I didn't know the answer to that until you've just asked me. And the answer that comes to me is that they take away that we're all connected by water and we're all connected by love.
Well, that is now the title of this episode. Thank you so much. Right.
But didn't you come away with that
Yes.
in the end? Yes.
What I got out of it was, and this is where I give you an honest but sincere compliment. And I didn't want to tell you this as you were writing it. I didn't want, like, oh, you're just saying this because I'm,
Your
but
friend.
there are very few books that make me feel things in a way where I feel like this book is mine. I'm gonna compare your book to one of my favorite books of all time, Wonder.
Really?
It was that immersive. It was that special. It was fun, but it had so much heart and so much realism in this world.
That's because first of all, Wonder's a wonderful book. Second of all, I know how much you love that book because you've told me before. So thank you, Bob. That's an amazing compliment. Thank you.
And that's why I didn't want to tell you as you were writing it, because I didn't want to be like, oh, he's saying that. But it really evoked that energy and those sensibilities for me.
And I actually have to say, when reading both books, when I was reading, because you have to read them and reread them and reread them, obviously, when you're writing it and then getting it ready for publication. And the first book, I found I was excited at the end still, as you worked up to the very end of the first book. And even when I knew what was going to happen, I still got excited about it. I thought that was a good sign. And this book, getting to the end, yeah, it gets me, which is interesting. And I'm not saying that to be braggy or anything.
No, but if it makes you feel something.
It even because I knew what was going to happen, and even as I was reading it for the drillionth time, it was like it got me what happens at the end of book 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That means a lot, what you just said.
Because, like you said, Wonder was a transformative. It changed my view on literature as a whole. So to have this other extension and to be a part of it, very valuable to me.
I didn't know nothing about this book did I do on my own. So that's one thing I have to say. It's just been such a collaboration, and so much of it as I was writing, I really didn't know where it was coming from. Like I say, it's this feeling not of creating, but of discovering. And yeah, it's been a really interesting experience. So maybe, who knows? Maybe, Waterubas are water, so they're inside me. God knows how much they might have influenced what I was writing. I do feel like that sometimes.
When can people get immersed in
19th of March will be the book 2 comes out. It will be available on Amazon that day. And then the book 1 is available now.
Buy it. Seriously, buy it. I'm so excited for people to get into this and to just love what I've been loving. And I wanted to thank you for joining me today, because I also wanted to show people that after I do an interview, a lot of the times I become really friends with these people, and I wanted to share our connection and our bond. And I think Waterubas had a great deal to do with that.
But I want to thank you for your invaluable support and enthusiasm and love. I've really appreciated it.
Do you remember when I forget what it was, but you wrote something and I said, I wouldn't do that. There was something with the wheelchair where
Oh, really?
I forget what it was, and I said, "You have to change that."
Was it because to begin with, I was like being stupid? It wasn't motorized.
That
I think it
might
was
have been
that
what
one.
it
Like you
was.
were basically said to me, "What are you doing? He can drive this thing around. Don't be an idiot." And so it's like, oh yeah.
And I said, "Hey, look, here's footage of my wheelchair.
What is wrong with you?
Watch it, absorb it."
Yes. Yes.
So,
Thank
are
you.
there any plans in your head to continue these characters in these stories?
There really aren't, but you never know what's going to happen.
That's got to be bittersweet for you, but also rewarding because you get these stories out there.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm very interested when I start to talk to people kids who've read it, and you never know what's going to happen. Right now, the story's finished. But who knows? The Waterubas. Yeah, I don't want to give it away, but the story as it was is finished, and yeah, I'm just waiting to see what happens next. But for right now, I really want to get these 2 books. I want kids to read them. I want to get it out there. I want to get feedback from readers. I want to work with readers because I have this idea. If I go into a school, we haven't designed all 81 of the Waterubas. That kids could design them. I want to work on the website. Kids could design them and design one of the Waterubas and make up a story or tell the story of where that Wateruba has been for the last 4 billion years.
I'm so excited to watch that unfold as well because I know that you're going to be calling me and being like, "Do you like this?"
Of course I will be.
Because nothing makes me happier than getting a phone call from you. So I have this thing, or I'm doing this. One of the things that I do on this show, because I did it the first time we chatted, and like I said, our friendship is kind of important. So are there any questions that you have for me looking back after our first chat? I mean, we talk all the time, but is there anything that you're interested
No,
in?
I was really when you asked me the other day if you could have a review copy of the book too. I really, really just couldn't wait to hear what you thought of it. So you've answered that question.
Well, I I just wanna expand on that and say, if kids don't get immersed by this story even a little bit, then they're reading the wrong type of books or they're being exposed to things that are not of the Waterubas caliber. So look, you're not on social media, but you have some of a social media presence on with the
We're
water.
on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, which is that's that. But Instagram, and also we have a very basic website, and but that I'm going to be expanding that. That's definitely part of
Ooh.
this now the second book coming out. So I haven't been able to concentrate on it, and so that's also a project that's coming up, which will mean staying in touch with these characters, doesn't it? So
Before we wrap, I just had a quick question, because I was just thinking about it here. When you were originally pitching this for TV
yeah.
at the beginning of the pandemic, were you afraid that the idea of the Waterubas was gonna become commercialized, like they wanted to make toys, like they wanted to do that whole thing, like the collect them all kind of approach?
I wasn't, I had what I was more wary about at that because that would have been looking too far ahead. I was just wary about, if I wanted to go the broadcast route, and I've been the broadcast route with many things that I've done, was that it would, in order to make it work for them commercially, I might have to change the story. I had, I had ideas that maybe a broadcaster would say to me, "Does your main character have to be a girl?" And yes, she had to be a girl. It was that just feeling like I didn't want to make any compromises in order to meet some kind of I don't know, commercial goals on their part and they have a business too, and they know what works and what doesn't work. I didn't want to go there. Does that answer your question?
Of course it does. I was just wondering because as you were saying that, I kind of feared in my own head, like they would try to like make a brand of these characters and have all these toys and merchandise. And it's like, while that's great and fun, it doesn't always add up to being great.
Yeah. And also, if you're going to do that with this property, everything has to be made sustainably. You can't have toys that take up a lot of water to be made, all that kind of thing. There's that whole layer.
That would be like contradictory at its finest.
You know what it will be if I would love for this one day to be a film, this story.
Oh yeah.
I think it would be a fantastic, live action animation mix. It would be so much, and Brian Froud and I both would love to see that happen. And if that happens, and then what comes out of that is a desire to have some kinds of toys, but see, doing that, it will come from the idea that's there, right? It won't be, we're not changing the idea to make it work, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'd have to, and I know there's a group here in Britain called Products for Change. And they're all about getting people to think about how to make sustainable toys. And so there's a lot of that kind of work going on. And yeah, that would be a nice problem to have.
I wanted to sincerely thank you for joining me today and hanging out with me.
Thank you for asking me, Bob. Really, thank you.
Been a while. Well, not for us. We talk all the time, but for them, we love them. But
thank you.
Thank you so much for this.
And thank you. Big hug.